You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me as always, I have my co-host and good friend, Nick Kendell. Nick, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Football is getting closer and closer. I'm getting excited for college football. I've already been starting to watch some games from last year just because we're at that point of the year, just, itching for it and looking forward to some draft prospects already and getting ready for football. So ready for fall to get here. It's starting to get a little bit chiller in the air, and I'm excited for football, fall sweaters, pumpkin spice lattes, good fall beers, the whole lot of it.
I saw a meme earlier today of the guy walking with his girlfriend and looking back at another girl, and it had baseball on the girl on the right and football on the girl that he's looking at. And I was like, yep, that's exactly where I'm at. As much as we are St. Louis Cardinals fans, we are 10 times more Bronco fans. At least I am.
Oh, and, absolutely.
Yeah. So once football season kicks off here early August, like we're getting ready to, this Saturday is our very first game. Broncos have, I think it's the last game of the week. Why do we have to wait? Every other team gets to see their team before us. But that's what happens when you are on the mountain time zone, I guess.
Though I'm normally a kind of a pessimist maybe, or more of a realist, but we'll put a positive spin on that because we have the last game. We have the least amount of time to wait till the second game. So got that going for us.
Yeah, I guess I'll take that. But I'm just ready to watch the Broncos again. Man, yeah, it's been too long. I hate these years where the season ends early before the playoffs, and then we have to wait forever. And oh my goodness! But we're here. We're finally back to football. Training camp is going full speed ahead. Thankfully, knock on wood, Broncos have not had any of those serious injuries like Chargers.
Did you see Bosa just had a foot injury?
I did. I know they haven't said what it is yet, but that would be. Oh, my goodness. That would be about the Chargers season right there if he's done.
For sure.
Oh, man. But anyway, back to the Broncos. We want you to know that our Building the Broncos podcast is focused on all things pertain to your Denver Broncos, especially as it relates to the NFL draft and, of course, the team building. With Nick and myself being armchair GMs, we will be bringing you fresh insight analysis each and every week in every single episode, from scouting reports, player value, scheme and personnel fits, and, of course, just some general football-related banter. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have because we live for talking Bronco football. And you can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod. And make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of 24/7 Sports and an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football, draft, and Bronco crazy as we are. So please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners. So as a call to action, please go and take the time and go to iTunes or Spreaker and rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. Now, before we get to our football content here today, we want to just say a thank you real quick to our sponsor, Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. And I just was thinking this week I'm supposed to be part of a book club with some of the other pastors in town, and it's my week to pick a book. And so it's been great to have Audible. Yesterday while I was mowing during a lightning storm, that wasn't my smartest decision, but I did make the smart decision to listen to a book. So I really appreciate Audible making my reading possibilities a lot easier. Definitely recommend it. But now let's get to some football here. And last week we talked about the offense and some of the position battles that are going on, and I'm excited to see how those play out for the rest of training camp, as it's definitely looking like it's heating up. But we want to focus on the defensive side of the ball because there's definitely some good ones going on here. And the first group, I don't know if there is a better edge rush group in the NFL right now from top to bottom. Maybe that's a little bit of homeristic for me to say, but this is a very, very talented group here that the Broncos have. And, of course, it all starts with maybe the best defensive player in football in Mr. Von Miller. Nick, what can't you say about this guy and what he can do on the field?
Well, the only negative about Von Miller is that he's not going to start aging in reverse here. He has a finite career length, and that sucks because, man, he is just a joy to watch and just a joy to listen to. You know, he's not just a great football player, but he's a funny dude as well. You know, he's a lot going for him outside of football as well. So really just a great guy to have as the face of the franchise. Really, really lucky as people who follow the Broncos just to be able to watch this guy. And man, he can do it all. And in the day and age where the passing game is more and more important, guys that get it after the pasture are, you know, almost as important as the quarterback. And I would argue that Von Miller is up there with the best defensive players in football. The only guys I will hear an argument with on the same tier as Von Miller right now, also all pass rushers, are Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack. And Aaron Donald, I think I'd have, I mean, you saw the NFL players vote. Aaron Donald was above Von Miller. That's probably close. Maybe not. I don't know. They go back and forth. And I think Mack is just underneath him. So Von, freak player. You know, they're talking about him in training camp. If he actually went all out, he would destroy all the team's practices. So he can't really do that. So put him on bubble wrap, put him on ice, get him ready for week 1 of preseason. You know, maybe get him a series out there. Then let's see what some of these younger guys have. But Von Miller, man, what an absolute freak. Nobody has the burst he has. Nobody has the bend he has. His speed to power is incredible. He's gotten better and better every year as a run defender, setting the edge. And man, we got probably another 2-3 years of Von Miller in his prime. You know, again, knock on wood, if he stays healthy. And he's a game changer, not only for the defense, but the entire team.
I think one of the times that really opened my eyes just to how special Von Miller is to the Broncos was back in 2013. And I know that's a season that Von Miller probably doesn't want to remember because he got suspended, then he got hurt, and it just was a disaster for him. But when he played, I remember they showed a statistic that the Broncos went from a bottom 5 defense to a top 5 defense compared to when Von Miller was in and out. I mean, that's how much of a difference this guy makes. When we're talking about players that you can't lose for a season and guys that are truly difference makers that change the course of a game, you think about the Super Bowl 50. Von Miller's strip sack that led to a touchdown completely changed how Carolina had to view the rest of the game. Broncos go up 10-0, and all of a sudden, Carolina's in a position that they haven't been the entire playoffs. They've been winning games by 20, 30 points and just blowing teams out and never having to take their foot off the pedal. They can just run it down people's throats, do whatever they want. And all of a sudden, the Broncos make them one-dimensional, and that was because of Von Miller. And so, yeah, there's not enough good things you can say about the impact of this guy, and I'm really glad that it feels like the Broncos have made enough moves to make themselves at least competitive again. Because like you said, you would hate to waste the prime years of Von Miller with the team trying to rebuild. That's the very last thing you want to have happen. And so good to see the team looking like they're on the up and up, and Von Miller looking strong as ever. And his surrounding cast finally looks like a group that maybe could actually contribute this year. And the next guy, I mean, they've committed a lot of draft capital to this position. Like you said, behind quarterback, there's maybe no other position that has greater value than that of pass rusher. And the Broncos show that. They have 3 first-round picks in this group. And the next one, I know he's been a little bit of a letdown. He hasn't been a complete bust. I don't think you can say that about him. But Shane Ray is a guy that he hasn't quite always been healthy, hasn't quite been up to the weight that he was hoping for. It just there's been a lot of things that have really hurt his ability to contribute for the Broncos. But I am really hearing incredible things about what he's doing here at training camp this year. Are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, he's been doing really well. He's got the second best burst of any of the edge rushers, even better than Chubb, which, I mean, Shane Ray's always been more of that twitch edge rusher. That's his thing. He's a finesse twitch guy. And I hear he's looking really good. He's using his hands better. That splint compared to that cast has been a game changer. So hopefully that hand doesn't deteriorate because he didn't get surgery. It doesn't get worse and worse over time, but excited about him. And I'm glad that Chubb is listed as a starter. Granted, they list the depth chart as if the team was going to be in base packages, but I'm excited for what Ray looks like going forward, and getting a guy like Chubb that complements him very well, and getting Ray on the outside in more sub packages where it's obvious passing downs, and limiting his usage in obvious rundowns, I think will be good for him. And it's kind of unfortunate because this is probably his last season in Denver. I can't see them paying him the money he's going to need or demand on the market, even just because he's a first-round pick that's shown some ability as a pass rusher, when they're already spending that much on Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. But still, you got Chubb, Ray, and Von. I mean, that makes a dynamic trio right there on the edge for the Broncos this season.
Definitely. And I mean, no matter what, if he plays really, really well for the Broncos, it not only helps them this year, but it helps them with getting a nice comp pick next year. So, I mean, I'm really hoping this guy really comes out here and shows something. And I love, one of the best things that I've heard all offseason is that he's been able to lift because he didn't get that surgery. And he's closer to about 250 pounds, the heaviest he's been even during his time in college. This is the heaviest he's ever been. And I know some people would say here and say, well, maybe that takes away some of his burst. But my big thing was just watching him. He would get washed out of plays left and right. Teams knew the second that he was in, let's just run it right at Shane Ray over and over and over again. And it was sad. It was really bad. So good to hear that he's put on some weight, that he's maybe able to hold the edge a little bit better, and maybe able to add a few more moves to what he can do because of that extra weight, that he can add a little bit of a power move and complement that with his burst off the edge. So I'm excited to see what Shane Ray can bring to the table. And like you said, he's a very good counterpoint to then Bradley Chubb, who is that bigger guy, the stronger guy that can hold the edge, do well against the run, have those power moves inside for the pass rush. And I've heard that they've moved him inside on some pass rushing plays, where when Wolf was injured there, he went inside. He moved into that 3-tech position, 5-tech, whatever you want to call it. I mean, both those positions there that Wolf would have been playing. And that's just great versatility that the Broncos could have Chubb, Vaughn, and Shane Ray all on the field at the same time.
Yeah, NASCAR packages are going to be very fun. I mean, imagine Shelby Harris listed at 1-tech, then you got Chubb at 3-tech, Shane Ray next to him, and then Von Miller on the other side. I mean, this is the Broncos' defensive front is as talented as it has been since the Super Bowl. Granted, don't have Peyton Manning, and the no-fly zone, we'll talk about it here in a little bit, is not, at least on paper, going to be as good as that season. But the defensive line combined with the edge rushers looks pretty darn good to me. And Bradley Chubb is a guy that I think he makes the whole thing go around. Apparently today was one of his best practices he's had, and they were destroying the offensive line in team drills. So I'm really, really excited about it.
Well, that brings us then to the fourth guy he was a starter last year for the Broncos. And I think this just shows how incredible the depth has really improved this year. Of a guy that was a starter last year is now backup, I guess. I mean, he's kind of forced. He's not fourth string, but he would be the fourth guy in at the position, maybe fifth guy. We're going to talk about another guy that maybe has passed him, but I'll wait for that. But Shaq Barrett, he has been one of the most consistent, solid guys, probably from that defensive end, outside linebacker, pass rush position for the Broncos. He is pretty good against the run. He does decent in the pass. I mean, he was a great find for the Broncos for being an undrafted guy, to him to be able to come in and be a great contributor, where especially that 2015 season, man, he had some moves that just, I think, shocked some teams, that this is a guy that's coming in and making such an impact. But he's not a guy that I would depend on to be a starter long-term. He really is more that sub package, more, hey, let's put him in to get our guy a breather kind of guy. Wouldn't you agree that he's more that backup position pass rusher?
Oh, yeah, he is. I think Shaq Barrett, I like Shaq Barrett, but I personally think he's probably one of the most overrated players on this defense. because he's a local kid, which that tends to happen. And he flashed a lot when he was younger, but he really never took that next step. And the more he was able to see the field, whether it be DeMarcus Ware retiring or Shane Ray being injured, the less effective he became. So he's a good fourth edge rusher, really good at setting the edge, but doesn't really offer much as far as his burst or his bend, which you need as a speed rusher in today's game. And again, he's going to be a guy that, unless he takes a hometown discount, I don't see him on this team beyond this season. So he's good to have depth-wise, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if a team, offered a third or fourth round pick for the Broncos, or maybe even a better cornerback depth piece, or maybe an offensive lineman, that the Broncos would be willing to let go of Barrett when they already have guys like Chubb, Ray, and Von Miller, and Jeff Holland as well.
So I have to laugh about you saying that, considering I think it was about a month and a half ago we did a podcast where you kept harping on the idea of how many is too many pass rushers.
No such thing. I know.
Yeah.
I know. But it's not just like, it's also has to do with his contract. Like this is his last season. And if you're not going to be able to extend him beyond this season, are the Broncos really a Super Bowl contender? I personally don't think so. I see they're playoff contenders, and obviously, you're not going to get rid of him for nothing. But if you can get something that's going to, create more value down the line, or something where you already have good depth there, especially in the interior, that's something I would look at. But yeah, no, you can't have enough pass rushers, so it's got to be good value to move on from somebody like that.
Right, and I do think it makes it a little bit more possible when you have a guy like Jeff Holland, who has been stepping up for the Broncos. And this is a guy I know a lot of people could not believe went undrafted. And I remember talking about him when we were going through all of our college bowl games and taking a look at different players. And I just remember this guy bursting onto the scene, and he's got a lot of energy that he brings to the field. He's not consistent. He's not great at always holding the edge. But he's a guy that I thought could be a real contributor for a team, and kind of almost that Shaq Barrett backup kind of role. I thought he would be that perfect fit for a team. They couldn't depend on him to be a starter, but to really be that come in and still be able to make an impact kind of guy. And so I was really glad when the Broncos picked him up, and I do think it makes it where you feel a little bit better about maybe letting a guy like Shaq Barrett be traded to somebody, because you have that kind of depth that you just feel really good with what would be coming in instead of Shaq Barrett. And you get Jeff Holland for the next 3 or 4 years at a very, very cheap contract. Like you said, Shaq Barrett, he's going to get too expensive. Broncos probably get a comp pick unless they really go crazy paying players. But I don't see that actually happening, because they don't have a whole lot of cap space, and I think they have some homegrown talent that they want to keep around for next year. But anyway, this is top to bottom, like I said, just one of the best groups, I think, in the NFL at getting after the quarterback. And I'm so excited, especially to watch Bradley Chubb get his first action on the field, to see Shane Ray, how he's looking with that splint on his hand. And Jeff Holland is the other one that I'm just very, very excited. This whole group, like I said, it's just I just can't wait to see them on Saturday. And I think those past Bronco quarterbacks that are now with the Vikings are going to have their hands full with these guys coming off the edge. But since we got a lot of other groups to get to, Nick, who's the stud of this group? Who's the dud?
Honestly, I think the stud so far would be Ray, given the expectations I had coming in. Obviously, Von Miller's the real stud, but given where they're at projection-wise, I'd say Ray is the stud, and the dud would probably be Barrett, just based on what I've been told.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. When we've been hearing things like Jeff Holland really has been actually outplaying Shaq Barrett, that doesn't bode well for where Barrett's at. And hopefully it doesn't hurt his trade value. I mean, I think that's maybe why they're having him a little bit higher on their actual depth chart right now, just trying to maybe keep that trade value up there. But
he's still valuable because he's a really good edge setter in that 3-4, and he can play that 4-3 strong side defensive end as well. But yeah, I just don't see them being able to retain him. So we'll see what happens in preseason once the game's actually going, because he's more of a gamer than a guy who's going to flash in practice. I mean, there's a reason he went undrafted, because he doesn't really have those physical, flashy tools. So he's still valuable, but I just think he's probably the guy that's out of this group, probably the dud, which is, I mean, that's like being the worst genius. Like this is a good group. So
Yeah. Being the dumbest smart person.
yeah, exactly. Which is oftentimes what I think I'm at. So
yeah, I always had my teachers tell me that I was either the dumbest smart person or the smartest dumb person. They weren't sure which one.
yeah. Well, you are from where were you born and raised in?
Northwest Kansas.
Okay, so yep, there you go.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I live right down the highway from where I grew up, actually, which is kind of weird. My wife and I, when we were in Seattle, we said that there were two places that we would never live. She grew up in Nebraska. I grew up in Kansas. We said we're never going back to those states. And boom, here we are back in Kansas. So it is what it is. I guess they always say God has a sense of humor, and that's what's happened to us here. But anyway, back to football. Now we go to what I would actually consider, and I'll keep saying this, I think this is one of the most underrated groups on the entire team. And I think this is a group that's going to explode into the NFL and really surprise some people with how good this unit is. I still think they were underrated last year. They weren't great at getting after the quarterback, but the improvement of stopping the run. I mean, when you hold Ezekiel Elliott to 8 yards rushing, that's something special.
Yeah.
That might be the worst game of his career. And he still has a lot of career left. That's how big that game was. And so just looking at this group, got to start with the two big veterans on this team, Domata Peko and Derek Wolfe. I mean, these guys have been stalwarts within the NFL, have been emotional leaders, just character leaders, everything that you could imagine. And so far, honestly, with Peko, I'm kind of with you. I haven't heard a whole lot of news about him so far other than he's just doing what he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in the league for a long time. We know what he is. He's getting older. Another guy, just put him on bubble wrap. He knows what he needs to do to get ready. And he'll probably, play one series, preseason game 1, if that, maybe even just the first 3 downs. And then, get him back on the sideline because we got depth of the defensive line that the team needs to see. But Peko, not worried about him. He's not really much of a pass rusher, but really good guy in the locker room, probably one of the nicest guys on the team, and going to stuff the run. I mean, he's a nose tackle, so a nose guard even, so he's going to be valuable there. And Derek Wolfe, he's had some injuries. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And he had one injury scare this season already in preseason. Not really a big deal, but taken off. And every time Derek Wolfe goes down, I feel like it's a gasp because he's had some injury concerns over the last 3-4 seasons. But I would say he's the emotional leader of this team. He's the fire on that front end. And he's really fun to listen to interview. He seems like one of the more honest guys. He has that don't mess with us, don't F with us attitude. So if he can stay healthy, that'll be good. He's not really the same as far as a pass rusher I think he was when he was a little bit younger, but very technically sound, good in gap control, and a good 3-4 defensive end that can play some kick inside a little bit as well. So good player, and hopefully he can stay healthy this season. His contract does make me question if he's going to be here long term, especially with his injury concerns. And you have young guys like Gotsis and Walker and Shelby Harris who maybe will step up and fill that void if he were to leave on or walk, or the team was decided to move on from him. But Peko and Wolfe, I mean, pencil those guys in. They're starters, and we don't really have too many questions about them other than how good are they going to be as they get older, and can they stay healthy?
Right. And like you said, with Wolfe, it is that health issue that you have to really worry about, especially when you compare it to the contract. And I do know his wife has told him that she would really like him to retire. And family plays a big part in that kind of decision. And so I could see if he does get another injury this year, him just saying, I'm done.
Yeah.
He's made enough money. He's done enough in his career. He's got his Super Bowl ring. He's got enough money to take care of his family, all that kind of stuff. I could see him being one of those guys that's just like, you know what, it's time to walk away. And I saw a lot of his Instagram this summer of him traveling a lot with his family. And as you get older, it's just one of those things. You start figuring out some other things that become a little bit more important than football. So I don't know. We'll just have to see with Derek Wolfe. Again, I know he's committed to this year. I know he's in great shape. I know the surgery that he had, just talking to some people around the Broncos, they feel like Wolfe is in, at least health-wise, the best shape that he's ever been since his rookie year. And it does scare me that he did get that neck stinger, since that's where he had the surgery.
Yeah.
But he's another one. Get him in for a few plays, take him out. You don't need to see what Derek Wolfe brings to the table for the Broncos. You know he's one of your locked-in starters, just like Peko. And you really want to see, because they do. They have a lot of depth here, and they got to figure out which guys are going to be worth keeping around for the long term, possibly even. And that brings us to maybe the other starter in Adam Gotsis, his third year in the league, guy that, I don't know, it's been an up and down battle. It's been, you see some growth, of course, from his rookie year to his second year, definitely better against the run, better understanding of his gap responsibility, better understanding of keeping an eye on the running back, where they're going, all those kind of things. But definitely this is going to be the year where he's going to have to show that he could possibly be that replacement for Derek Wolfe moving forward, that he could be that long-term, hey, we can leave him in here for 3 downs. He can get after the quarterback. He can help out in the run game, all those kind of things. But it also depends a lot on these legal issues that are going on. Have you heard anything more on these?
Have not, so don't want to comment on anything that I don't understand. It's obvious, if he did do anything illegal there, with rape or assaults or anything like that, then definitely throw the book at him. But I don't have the details there. I'm not in the investigation, haven't heard much about it, so don't even know what to comment other than if he's guilty, he's guilty. Right. But as far as a football player, up and down last season, right now he looks, at least based on his tape last year, he looks like a 2-down stuffer, kind of that long guy who can control gaps. I think not only a 1-gap guy, but also a 2-gap guy, because he's strong and he can really use those hands to disengage and control those run lanes. But he really has to take a step as a pass rusher if he wants to be a long-term player in this league and make that money. He has the bursts. I think he has the ability to do it, but Caller said earlier this season, pass rush is kind of like a God-given ability. Some guys have it, some guys don't. So this is third year. This is normally the year that you kind of see those guys, if they're going to be pass rushers. This is when they start to really indicate it on the field. So we will see. But right now he's penciled as the starter. I think when they show the depth chart, they mainly show it as like a base 3-4 look, and Gotsis will be the base guy. But he might be a guy that's also taken out if he doesn't really develop as a pass rusher when the Broncos are in nickel, dime, or any sort of sub package.
All right, well, that brings us to a guy that I really do think could be the odd man out when the numbers crunch comes down, and that is Zach Kerr, who was injured part of last year, didn't really get a chance to get on the field because other guys were showing up when he did get healthy. And when he finally did get on the field, he showed a little bit. I don't think he ever really flashed a ton, but he was consistent in the run game, just like a lot of these other guys we've already talked about. They were well against the run, didn't always get after the quarterback a whole lot. And I could see where, since they already have Gotsis, they have Peko, they have Wolfe, who are all great against the run, looking to keep the kind of guys that are better against the pass. And that's just really not Zach Kerr. And I was a little surprised he wasn't listed as the second nose tackle when this first depth chart came out. I kind of thought if he's going to make this team, that's where he's going to have to make his money is coming in for Peko in certain situations. But right now it's Shelby Harris, who's listed as that number 2 nose tackle. Did that surprise you at all?
That doesn't really surprise me. I think, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I think Kerr will be the guy that gets in over another guy we'll talk about. We should just keep it moving because we're getting a little long here. Got to talk about the Vikings still, but I think Kyle Peko is going to be the odd man out when it comes down to it. And Zach Kerr, I think he's got better potential at nose, and he also got versatility to play 3 and 5 as well. So I think Kerr will probably be the guy that makes the team, and Kyle Peko is the one who's out. And speaking with some people close to the team, Kyle Peko's the guy he's just a guy. He's going to be a camp body for probably his whole career. And if Domata Peko wasn't here, I don't even know if Kyle Peko would be on this roster competing right now. So right now I think Zach Kerr is probably the one they'd keep over those two.
Okay, well then let's move on to DeMarcus Walker, the second-round pick from last year that neither of us were huge fans of, but I really do think that he could have a big role this year, especially if the team can play with a lead, because I have heard he's been showing some ability as a pass rusher. I mean, that's what we thought he would be, that if you get him on those third and obvious pass rushing situations, you stick him there in the middle and let him shoot the gap and see if he can beat his guy to the gap and get after the quarterback. And he has put on a lot of weight. Last I heard, he was at 280. Is that right?
I've heard about 280, 285.
Okay, somewhere in there. But I mean, that's definitely they finally decide, hey, this is what he's going to be. He's going to be that defensive end, defensive tackle. We're going to let him put on weight and be that guy. I think that's what he needs to do. He was never going to make it as an outside linebacker. That was just a crazy, stupid experiment because of injuries. They were kind of forced into that. But I'm glad that he's at least showing a little something as a pass rusher, because that's definitely what they need him to be.
Yeah, anybody who's listening knows that we were not fans of this pick when it happened. Thought he was limited to a interior pass rusher and sub packages. Not really worth the 51st overall pick. What he was, probably more of a late third, early fourth round pick. I mean, if you're getting guys like Deshaun Hamilton and Josie Jewell round 4, you're not taking Walker round 2. But that's beside the point. He's on the team now, so they're gonna have to find a spot for him to be effective, and this is where he's going to be effective. He's a guy that's going to be an interior pass rusher. I don't know if he's as good as Shelby Harris is in that department. You know, Shelby Harris is a guy who flashed a lot last year. I think he's probably our best interior pass rusher this season. But Walker, I think he's got a really good swim move, good hands. And if you have good edge rushers kind of collapsing around it, Walker is a guy who can get there on that secondary rush where, you know, he's not winning often right out of his stance, but he'll eventually disengage from that guy because he is very good with his hands, and then push the pocket and, you know, get after the quarterback. So I'm excited he's going to be playing interior this season more because that's where he needs to be. And I think he can get after the quarterback. So don't get him in there on rush downs, though. And don't ask him to be a guy who's going to change directions, because that's not where he's good at. And then Shelby Harris, probably, I think he's the most underrated guy. Second most underrated guy on the defense, probably the most underrated on the front, though. From Illinois State, coming on his 4th year. From the Raiders. Thanks, Raiders, for letting all go these good players. We really enjoy it. We got Veld here, former Raider. Shelby Harris, too. Some of our up-and-comers on these units this season for the Broncos. And I really like Shelby Harris. I think he's flashed a lot last year. I think he's going to be even better. He's listed as a backup nose tackle, but I think that's more of a sub-package look. And he can play 5-3-1. He's very effective, and I really like him. I think he's going to have a good year. I'm almost afraid he's going to be too good, and it's going to possibly push him out of the Broncos' price range. I'm not sure. I've heard conflicting reports. I'm not sure if he's a unrestricted free agent next year or a restricted free agent. But either way, Harris is a guy that I'm expecting to see a lot more of. And if you follow me on Twitter, he's going to be a guy that I'm going to be pumping up, because I'm thinking he is going to be making a lot of splash plays this year, especially with the talent on the defensive line and the edge rushers around him.
Well, that brings us to the final guy that we're going to talk about here for the defensive line, in Clinton McDonald. Now, this is a guy that missed most of OTAs and minicamp and all those kind of things because of a shoulder injury, and he had an infection in his shoulder, which is kind of weird. But anyway, he had some problems there, got it cleaned out, and he's finally back on the field. And I've been hearing really good things about him too. He was a great pass rushing option for Tampa Bay last year, which they didn't have a whole lot of those. So him being surrounded by more talent this year, he could be an even bigger impact player. So I think it could get interesting between McDonald and Harris of who's competing for more snaps at getting after the quarterback. I mean, even Walker being thrown in there. These guys are going to have to be fighting tooth and nail to get on the field, because there is other guys that have those talents that they can bring to the field.
Yeah, I've heard people talking about McDonald, how he's playing like a young guy, bringing some pass rush. I mean, he was very effective last year for a Tampa Bay team that was really devoid of interior, or I guess edge rush talent, not interior talent. They have Gerald McCoy. He played next to Gerald McCoy, which helps a lot. But they really lacked edge rushers. And now you bring him in here where he's going to be, again, an interior pass rusher, more of the substitution type. And I think he can be really effective. So this is a really good unit. I'm really excited about it. I wish we could morph some of these guys together into one player to create like a super top 10 defensive lineman. But still, the depth is going to be great. And as we saw with the Eagles last year, the Broncos 3 years ago, and the Seahawks 5 years ago, interior talent, a talent along the whole defensive front is huge for a defense, can overcome a lot of issues on the defense, and the Broncos have it this year. So edge rusher and defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, along with wide receiver, look to be the best spots on this roster as we progress to preseason week 1. But the other position, another position we're going to talk about now that is not as good, especially depth-wise, a lot of questions, is off-ball linebacker. And the main guys to talk about, the starters, obviously, Brandon Marshall and Todd Davis. They're penciled in as the starters and probably should be expected to be the starters this season. There are some guys hopefully behind them that'll push them, but I doubt that's really going to happen this season. Brandon Marshall has reportedly lost weight. He's moving around well. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He doesn't have some health issues in his past, so that'll be something to watch. But a smart guy, well-spoken, intelligence, and a leader on that team for sure. And he's been solid in camp by all reports. I'm not really sure he's a true 3-down cover guy. He's a solid athlete. He's not like he's a liability out there, but he's not a huge plus as far as covering in the pass game. And then Todd Davis, he's the guy who's going to be taken off the field first when you're moving into nickel packages. He's a guy who can do very well coming down and filling gaps and taking on blockers and shedding them as well. But when you ask him to move sideline to sideline or put his back to the ball anytime in man coverage, he's the guy who's going to get burnt there. So Todd Davis and Brandon Marshall, probably the starters again. They're solid. Both of them getting older. Both of them have contracts that look like they could get out of them next year if the Broncos wanted to. So probably, they're put on watch this season. And if anybody behind them starts to push them, then I'm guessing one of these two guys might be ones that are moved on from. So that way the Broncos can create some money to sign guys like Matt Paradis and Bradley Roby if they have to do it.
Well, we talked about it last week, the tight end group and how they've been showing pretty well, and the running back group getting open in the pass game. And we talked about the question, or we asked the question, is it because the off-ball linebackers are just not that good, or is it because the tight end group and running back group is just that much more improved in the pass game? And I guess it's one of those we're fixing to find out kind of things. But it's definitely a group that needs a new burst of talent for sure. Brandon Marshall, I am worried about him playing at 225 pounds. That just seems so light. I mean, I know he's a pretty good player, and I know he's trying to get a little bit more speed back so he can be better in the pass game, but I still, that's a little too light for me for an off-ball linebacker that's going to have to come down and make some plays in the run game. And he's already got hurt once in camp, his hand, something like that. He had to miss a day of practice, but he's one of those guys that gets dinged up, it seems like, every year. Todd Davis, like you said, he's such a good run defender. He's very, very underrated in what he brings to the run game. I remember somebody had posted on Twitter a picture of the first game of the year last year against the Chargers and him coming down on a 4th and 1 play and just destroying the play in the backfield. Just timed it perfect, just shot the gap. Great, great play. But again, just not a 3-down player, not a great fit for what you're looking for in today's off-ball linebackers for the NFL that can actually stay on the field for pass protection, because a lot of teams love to take advantage of Todd Davis. They like to keep him on the field if they possibly can. And that kind of brings us then to the backup guys here. And Josey Jewell, your boy, the outlaw. I asked you the question the other day if he's even going to make the team, kind of joking. But no, he's finally back on the field from his hamstring injury. Still kind of, I think, getting back from that. Have you heard, are they actually going to play him in the game on Saturday?
I have not heard, but I hope so, because he's a guy I'm intrigued by a lot. Obviously being a Hawkeye fan and him being an Iowa boy through and through. I mean, he's played since his freshman year, and he's one of my favorites that I've had a chance to watch as a Hawkeye and now a Bronco. So hopefully he does. And also all the questions at the depth of linebacker position. It'd be nice to see if he can come in and move well. So I'm guessing he will play, but if that hammy's not feeling good at all, they'll probably be safe with him. But he's an interesting guy, early 4th-round pick, and I'm thinking that if Todd Davis struggles at all this year and Josey Jewell's showing at all, I think Todd Davis could be the guy that's feels heavy breathing from, as Von Miller likes to call him, Redbeard, early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, even Vance Joseph had said that they have a package set up for Josey Jewell. They have plays that they want to use him. They didn't say what that meant, but they have a plan for this guy to get on the field. And that's something I think that is so underrated about this season, is how much we're hearing about this rookie class. These guys are making instant impacts in camp and really surprising a lot of these veterans with how good they're looking already. And that's nothing but good for the Broncos to finally have a draft that they can look at and say, man, we got some real studs here, maybe some real starters that are going to be here long term. And I think Josey Jewell could be one of those guys. He just has that leadership, that mentality, that those instincts that you really love to see from the off-ball linebacker position, where it's great to have incredible athletes, but I don't think that's the number one quality you're looking for in an off-ball linebacker. They really have to show those great instincts to know where they're supposed to be and where the ball's going, what's going on. And that's definitely what Josey Jewell brings to the table. And then their other rookie that they drafted is Keyshawn Bierria. And I haven't really heard too much about him. I've heard a few flash plays here and there, but nothing too big right now. And I know you messaged me, what was it, like a week ago? And was pretty upset because one of the guys you really wanted the Broncos to take was Leon Jacobs. And he's a guy that's getting starting reps with the Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe the best defense in football. And here's the 7th round pick for them getting snaps with their starting unit. And we have Keyshawn Bierria, who's probably he's going to make the team, but I don't think he's going to be much more than a special teams kind of guy, right?
I mean, 6th round pick, linebacker, not a great athlete, kind of hit or miss tape. We talked about him. You can go back and check the receipts and when we talked about him. And I was saying, yeah, I really wish it would have been Leon Jacobs instead, who's now going to be a freaking starter for the Jags. Not that I'm bitter or anything. But Bierria, he's going to have to show in special teams, but I'm not expecting anything for him other than hopefully beating out Zaire Anderson and Jarrell Garcia-Williams, who are two guys that haven't heard pretty much anything about. So, yeah, there's been talk the Broncos, there's 3 areas on the team that they are somewhat concerned with, at least from what we've talked with. It's the depth at cornerback, which we'll get to here soon. The depth at linebacker, which is not great, especially because Josie Jewell hasn't been playing, so he was a question mark at the time. And the backup quarterback position. So Keyshawn Bierria has not been turning heads at practice like the other rookies. Maybe it's because the other rookies, every single one of them that's been drafted in front of him, from Bradley Chubb all the way down to Troy Fumagalli, we've heard a lot of positive things about. Bierria, have not heard anything other than he came in when Josie Jewell was missing and was struggling. So that's not a good thing. I do think he'll make the team. He's going to have to show in special teams, and I'm going to be definitely watching him when preseason finally rolls around. But yeah, I think the depth behind the top 3 guys, I think they're probably all Jags. So we'll see. Maybe Keyshawn Bierria. I mean, he's still a rookie, still young, but Zaire Anderson, Keyshawn Bierria, and Jarrell Garcia-Williams, I don't think they're guys that you want to hang your hat on as far as roster building.
Definitely. It's going to be a group that's going to be maybe a year or 2 away. But I know this is a group that John Elway has targeted in the past in the draft in the first round, and it just hasn't worked out because there's a finite number of really good 3-down off-ball linebackers. It's kind of like the offensive line of the defense. There's just a lack of true quality talent or quantity talent really that floods this group. And so if you can find somebody, you hold on to them and you pay them and you keep them around for sure. And right now, I guess it's just kind of wait and see how this group pans out. And hopefully some of them have grown, like Todd Davis and Brandon Marshall, and maybe a rookie can step up like Josie Jewell and be more than a true rookie usually shows. That's the greatest hope the Broncos can have right now, because there's nobody coming off the street that's going to improve this group for sure.
Yep, so that's definitely one we're going to have to watch going forward because things may change there. But now on to the cornerback group, which is one that is going to be very interesting this season. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. And I really do like the top 2 guys, Chris Harris Jr. and Bradley Roby. I think they're not the best duo in the NFL, but they're darn good. And I think Roby, he flashed last year when Talib was gone. It's going to be make or break for him as far as his contract, if the Broncos are going to be willing to pay him big money, which he will demand on the open market. But it's going to be interesting. But it's after those first 2 guys where I get concerned. Isaac Yiadom, I'm excited to see he's doing better because I was a little bit concerned in as far as, is a 3rd round rookie really going to make a big impact this season, especially after Brendan Langley's struggles last year at the same, being a compensatory 3rd round pick. But Yiadom, he's already listed as the 3rd cornerback on the depth chart, ahead of Tremaine Brock. He's apparently doing better every single practice. So I'm excited about him. He's a very savvy, smart press man corner, physical and run support. He can work and add to his frame as well. That's, that can be said for most rookies, but it's after those first 2 guys where it gets questionable. Langley, he apparently was good in OTAs, but then was up and down after that. And apparently he's been getting in his own head. Like when he struggles and he makes a mistake, it tends to snowball on him and he makes more and more mistakes. So that's not good. And then Tremaine Brock, I really love Chris Harris Jr. He's one of the best, most underrated cornerbacks in the game. But where Chris Harris Jr. is at his best is when he can be that outside guy, that one of those 2 cornerbacks in base, but then kick into slot when there are 3 cornerbacks. It's better to have 2 bigger guys on the outside and let Chris Harris Jr. work where he's best, in slot. Tremaine Brock, not an outside cornerback in today's NFL. He struggled there. He's way better in nickel. So you want to have Brock in the slot with Chris Harris Jr. and Roby on the outside? Or would you rather have Yiadom outside with Roby on the other side and then Chris Harris Jr. in the slot? I think that's a better makeup for this team going forward, personally.
No, I'm with you. This is definitely a young group that we really won't know what they are until they get on the field and are in live action snaps. But I do like what I'm hearing about Yiadom. I like that he's improving with each practice. I've actually been hearing better and better things as time has gone on. I heard early on in training camp he was getting beat a little bit more against those quicker guys like Sanders, but I've been hearing he's been doing a lot better against those guys even as camp has gone on. Pretty much the only guy that's still beating him is Sutton. But Sutton has been beating Chris Harris. He's been beating Bradley Roby. I heard he put a little dance move on Bradley Roby for a touchdown today.
I heard that too.
Was a comeback route where he just kind of juked him out of his pants and out of his shoes, I guess, whatever you want to call it, but and made a nice play and scored. So I don't think that's anything against Yiadom. I think that's just Sutton is that much better than everybody else. I think I hate to get on the hype train because it's you don't want to get too crazy and there's times where we heard similar things about Latimer. We talked about that on this show before, but I think this time it's the real deal. And so I think personally for me, I would have Yiadom as my number 3 because I want to have him on the outside and move Harris inside because Harris is so valuable on the inside. Like you said earlier, that when you get him into those 3 wide receiver sets, Harris against the slot, there's just nobody better in the NFL. And to be able to cover that guy one-on-one, to be able to trust your cornerback just to handle that guy, that is huge. That is a great weapon to have. And so that's personally what I would do right now if I were the Broncos, if things continue the way that they're going. But it's still heartbreaking to hear Langley's not quite developing like they were hoping. He showed some moments, but like you said, he's regressing as time goes on. And Tremaine Brock, I mean, you can't make the team from the tub. So the guy's got to get back on the field, but it's one of those, he's probably got a roster spot just because there's so little depth. These guys have been going down left and right, and it's just making it where they got to keep him. They got to have that veteran that can come in and do some things. And then you got Marcus Rios, who showed some moments last year, but more of a depth guy than anything else, just another guy. But it's definitely not the cornerback group of the last few years. That's one of the easiest statements to make this year for sure.
Yeah, and we'll really see that when we go over the Vikings cornerback group, which is ridiculously good. And finally, moving on to the safeties, Justin Simmons, I mean, emerging star, in my opinion. This is going to be, his 3rd season. He's already the best safety on the team. He's the best safety on the team last year. Probably one of the best athletes on the team. Smart guy, all over the field, a student of the game. I mean, he's not a freak as far as his long speed goes. He's not a guy who's running a 4.3 40, but he's versatile. And he's playing nickel cornerback almost as much as he's playing like strong safety and free safety. They're moving him around. Kind of like one of the reasons Minkah Fitzpatrick was so highly touted was because, he's not only a safety, he can come in and play cornerback as well. Well, Simmons is doing the same thing, and I would argue he's an even better athlete. So I'm really excited about what Justin Simmons is going to bring to the table this year. Darian Stewart, they have him listed at strong safety right now. I thought he kind of struggled there last year. I thought maybe they'd move Simmons at strong safety and move Stewart back to free safety, but I think they're going to move those guys around because then they have a crud ton of strong safety / dimebacker types. You got Sua Cravens, who's been injured so far, but he's going to see the field soon, and we need to see what we have out of him. Will Parks, he's been making some splash plays. He's a solid special teams guy, but he was one of the lower-rated players in the Broncos defense last year as far as Pro Football Focus goes, and he had a lot of snaps. He actually had more snaps last season than Todd Davis even had. So that's just the way the NFL is going. Those safeties / those hybrid linebacker types are becoming the norm. And then Jamal Carter, he's had some flashes as well. I think Carter is a guy who he's an interesting to watch. And then Diamante Thomas as well, who's competing for that free safety spot. But really the only 2 guys on this roster as far as free safety goes that I see playing there are the guys who are starting in Simmons and Stewart. After that, it's a bunch of strong safety / linebacker hybrid types, or dimebacker as people like to call them.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there, but It will be nice this year finally having a few more pieces to move around, like a Sua Cravens, Will Parks, maybe. Hopefully he's grown a little bit from last year because, like I said, it's not only that he scored the worst for PFF, but he also gave up the most touchdowns. I mean, it's not just the PFF score. It's easy the eye test to see that this guy struggled last year. And Jamal Carter, I hope that he can show more than just flashes because I think he could be a huge special teams guy. I mean, I think he could really turn games around with just big hits in special teams. So I'm kind of hoping that he can make the team and just kind of see how this group plays out. But again, this is another group that Cravens has to get healthy. He's got to knock some rust off. He needs to be on the field. Of all the young guys that I think could be huge contributors this year, Sua Cravens got to get healthy. Need him to get healthy and get on the field. But it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the stud, got to be Simmons. And the dud so far, I guess it'd be Cravens just because he's been injured and missed a lot of time. And as far as stud for cornerback, probably going to be Roby because he's been good on the outside of, Sutton postering him, which apparently with that fade route, he's doing that to a lot of people. And then Langley probably the dud.
I can't disagree with any of those.
All right, well, we still got to talk about the Vikings game here. But first, let's talk to you about why you need to become a Mile High Huddle VIP subscriber. Mile High Huddle's approach to covering the Broncos isn't just about reporting the news, although we do pride ourselves in being able to relay you all the breaking news on the Broncos as it's happening. But what we like to focus on is breaking down the Broncos from an in-depth perspective. All 22 film reviews, X's and O's, deep dives on player evaluation, draft prospect fits, etc., analysis on the upcoming draft class. We save our best and most in-depth content for our premium members, the VIP subscribers. To become a Mile High Huddle VIP and get access to 100% of our written analysis and VIP insider forums, just click on the green banner at the top of the website. Click the monthly or annual option and you'll be locked in. From there, you get access to everything we produce, which includes any insider information we pick up along the way. We work hard to bring you the best Broncos coverage and analysis on the web. We ask for your support by becoming a VIP subscriber. Pull the trigger and you have my word, you will not be disappointed. All right, well, actually, now it's time to the Scouts Eye Preview is back. I don't even know what we're going to call it. Do we have a dual podcast name here? Scouts Eye Preview in the regular season, building the Broncos.
We're going to have to talk to Chad about that one a little bit. Try to figure out what we're going to do with this, but no, it's good. It's finally we're finally back to games. Like I said, that's such a good thing to hear. And this is a game, even though it's preseason, that actually has quite a few really, really good storylines and some really good opportunities just to see how far our team has come. And the first, maybe one of the biggest storylines, because I mean, it goes from first string clear down to third string of how big this is. And the crazy thing is right now, 5 of the 6 quarterbacks that are going to be in this game have either played for the Broncos or are playing for them right now. The only one that hasn't been a Bronco is Kirk Cousins. And even there, yeah. I mean, the Broncos were tied to him. He's the guy that replaced Keenum to take him to that next level. So can Keenum come in and outplay Cousins? I mean, that's going to be one of the big storylines this year. If the Broncos got Keenum at a discount and he outplays Cousins, oh my goodness, Viking fans are going to lose it. But I mean, that is Cousins versus Keenum. That's going to be a big storyline all year long. Then you have Lynch versus Simeon. Oh my gosh, I thought we were done with this. But it's back. the Lynch versus Simeon battle, and here it is. And then the battle of the talented 7th round and undrafted guys that the Bronco fans seem to really go crazy about. I know it's always hard not to want to go a little crazy for the potential, but you got Kelly versus Sloter. Oh my goodness. The Sloter crowd last year, they had me laughing quite a bit. But anyway, so that's going to be some fun battles just to see these quarterbacks facing off. And of course, Broncos need to figure out, do they have a backup quarterback? I mean, that's going to be one of the big questions. I know some people have said Kelly deserves second team snaps, backup snaps, whatever. Right now, I'd say neither guy has shown that they deserve to be that second string guy. And so this will be a big game where they need to show something to keep the Broncos from bringing in a veteran quarterback to replace them there. And, of course, then our defense going up against these quarterbacks. Cousins, he's a very, very good test to see, can our secondary hold up? Of course, Simeon, he's got some accuracy. He's got a little bit of everything, but nothing great, I guess I would say. So it'll be good to see him back in Denver, of course. But I'm excited. This is more for a first preseason game. Let me start that over. For a first preseason game, there's actually some really, really good storylines that make me want to watch this game beyond just being a Bronco fan.
Yeah, of course, the quarterback battle is going to be huge and interesting, but I think for me, I'm really interested to see how the Broncos offensive line does against the Vikings front. Obviously, the Broncos offensive line has been really just hit or miss the past few seasons. Last year, really good in the run game, stunk in the pass game, and that Vikings front is very talented. I mean, obviously, you got the starters in Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter going to be taking on the Broncos offensive tackles, and on the inside, you have Livinal Joseph, who's one of the best nose tackles in the game, even better than Pecco, I'll say it, and then Sheldon Richardson, who, while he may be somewhat of a head case, is a very talented interior pass rusher at that 3 technique position. So offensive line is really going to get a strong test early, and we'll see how many series both units get to go at each other. But the offensive line versus the Vikings front is something that I'm going to be very interested in.
Definitely. That's it doesn't get much tougher than those 4 right there.
Yeah, that's a good unit.
For especially first test. And I love that the Broncos have had their offensive line, all 5 starters together, all training camp. Last year, we were substituting guys in, moving Leary around because Garcia couldn't decide if he was good at either position, which he wasn't good at either one.
Nope. Newsflash, he's not.
Yeah, it was a hot mess. And it just ruined any kind of chemistry that the offensive line could have got last year. And so it'll be good to see what these guys can actually do going against a very, very good group and having to protect our new investment, Keenum, because he goes down. Oh my goodness, it's season's done. So yeah. These guys better not let us down. That's all I'm going to say. And then another group that we've been talking about a lot on these podcasts is, of course, the Broncos wide receivers have been having quite the time in camp. Now, is that because the secondary is weaker than it has been, or is it because the Broncos have just added that much more talent and the starters are that much healthier this year? Well, they're going to get maybe the best cornerback group in the entire NFL to go against. I don't really have a problem saying that because you got Xavier Rhodes, who I really think that he's the top 3 cornerback in the NFL right now. I don't think he gets talked about enough for what he brings to the field.
Who are 1 and 2?
Who are 1 and 2? Oh, boy. Well, Jacksonville has a nice cornerback.
2 nice cornerbacks.
Yeah, 2 nice cornerbacks. It'd be hard to argue that they both don't deserve to be in the top 5.
Like Marshawn Lattimore is incredible, even just after a rookie season.
Yeah.
Patrick Peterson's still great.
Right. Lattimore, it's a little bit of wait and see. Let's see if he can do it 2 years in a row. I think he can.
He was incredible last year, though, man.
Right. I just hate to put a rookie clear up there in that top 2. But anyway, Rhodes definitely deserves to be in that conversation of top cornerback in the NFL. And then you got Trey Waynes, who really improved last year. I think he's a very underrated player. Terrence Newman. How's this guy still in the NFL? I remember going to football camp, K-State football camp, and seeing this guy and getting a chance to talk to him. I think he even autographed my football shoes.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. And I feel old, and yet he's even older than me. But then you got Mackenzie Alexander, another very, very promising guy that was in the draft. Mike Hughes, I know another guy that you were pretty high on. And then Holton Hill, a guy that you really kind of pounded the table for, and I was really hoping the Broncos would get him as an undrafted guy. Didn't work out that way. But again, this is top to bottom. Just going to be a great, great matchup. Just to really see, are our young guys that good? Can they perform against this kind of talent? And can our quarterback actually get it to them? So I'm excited to see that battle first through third string. And, of course, then they have their safeties, Andrews and Dojo. And
Sendeja.
Sendeja. Okay. Sorry, I mispronounced that. But he's the guy that had the Make Football Violent Again hat.
And shirt.
Yeah. After the new rules that pretty much make safeties impossible to do their job. And, of course, Harrison Smith, one of the top safeties in the NFL. So just definitely really, really good secondary. They're going to give the Broncos a really good test early on. And then that brings us to our next group here, Broncos cornerbacks versus Vikings wide receivers. Man, just another good group, good test. This Vikings team, I have to say, they have a lot of talent. A lot more talent than people sometimes give them credit for. I know they get lost in the talk of the Eagles and Cowboys and even Packers and others, but this is a very talented team with Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Laquan Treadwell. Our boy Kelly might remember this kid pretty well. Kendall Wright is another that was a first-round pick, hasn't really lived up to that, but for being a fourth-string guy, that's still pretty good talent there. So definitely an early test for our young guys and to see where they're at. And I don't know. I just am. I'm so excited for this game beyond just it being the first game, beyond it just being a Broncos game. There's just a lot of great matchups to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I'm excited to see the Broncos defensive front against the Vikings. And one thing, looking over these rosters, I like the Vikings starters a lot. Outside of the cornerbacks, though, I don't think it's a very deep team, which, the wins and losses in the preseason, who cares? The Lions went 4-0 that season. They went 0-16, 4-0 in preseason after they went 0-16 in the regular season. So, it doesn't really matter. But looking at how this game sets up and probably how the starters probably not going to play outside of the quarterback position for Denver, I think that they have a big advantage because I think the Broncos' depth is much better. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Broncos are going to win this game. I'm going to go 27-17.
I'm going to go 20-17. I think this is going to be a little lower scoring game, which most preseasons are because they call a lot of penalties and there's just always not a lot of great chemistry, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I think this is going to be a great game to watch for Bronco fans.
Football's back. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Building the Broncos / Scouts Eye Preview. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you head over to Mile High Huddle, a new affiliate of 24/7 Sports and the CBS Sports Digital, to find ours and our co-writers' articles, not just related to the draft and the scouting and everything like that, but everything that pertains to your Denver Broncos. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. We aren't just here to bring you the news, but an in-depth analysis each and every week from team building, game planning, and 365 days of covering the Denver Broncos. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher, as well as check us out on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and to reach out to us as we love interacting with you fellow Bronco fans. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of Building the Broncos podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Carl, this time next week, we will have watched Denver Bronco football.
That just blows my mind. It's back.
Here,
it still doesn't feel real, though, until it happens.
Gosh, it's coming, baby.
I'll be sitting here in my office watching that game live. I'm so excited.
Well, as always, got to leave you with Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.